Hello and welcome to Journeys in Transformation Analytics. This is our third episode talking about the data culture. It's a fascinating set of discussions we have had in the first two sections. And with me again today, I'm happy to have back Piyanka Jain. She's the CEO of Aryng. It's a data science consulting company, and they are just masters. And she personally is a master in the topic of like how do you help an organization become data-driven and drive a data culture in it. Piyanka, welcome again.
Thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to our third conversation on this topic.
Perfect. So we talked about we talked about the definition. How do you think about data culture? Obviously, in the second episode, we talked about how do you actually go about doing it, how do you institutionalize it. But a topic that not a whole lot of people talk about, which I think is even more important, and Piyanka, I think you recommended that we speak about it, what not to do. Right. I mean, I know you've been at it for some time, and there's been a bunch of learnings and probably from some scars too, as I imagine.
I have some wounds to share. Yeah.
Exactly. So can you talk a little bit about as you see the organizations going down this journey and mistakes they're making and something that they should probably avoid?
Yeah, I have lots to share here. One thing I'm seeing, one pattern I'm seeing is a lot of leadership is thinking of this initiative as a fix my culture, and they often hand this to an L&D leader without giving them the proper proper tools and tricks, proper authority, proper sort of vantage and context, and they're saying fix my culture here, L&D leader, fix my culture. And what's happening as a result of that, and the L&D leaders, and they Google and they often find us, and that's why I know these conversations, because they come in and say, hey, Piyanka, looked up your certification courses. What would it take to just licensing these courses? And I'll go back and I'll say, okay, that's great, but could you tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to achieve? Who are you, this thing, and all of that. The conversation actually often does not go the way you would expect, because what they're doing is they're sort of thinking they're shopping for one course, one something that they can do it to all the employees, and I'm asking them some tough question. How are you going to measure the success of this? What are your different data literacy personas? Who needs to be at what level? They also the L&D leaders are often thinking of doing this in sort of a silo. And when we ask them, the first step would be voice of executive, we'll work with, and they're often thinking, you don't need to talk to executives. Let's not bother them. We'll just do some training and how, this will work. And I can't tell you, if you think of it this way, you're going to definitely do some work, maybe lots of work. You're going to send people through some training, whether you get it through us or whoever. But it's not going to be successful. You're going to come back 1 year later and you're going to still have that same question. Nobody would have known. First of all, you didn't measure yourself before and after. You don't even know how to measure the success. You wouldn't know if you were successful. Nobody would actually, maybe by that time people have stopped caring because they went through too much training and they're like, most of them didn't find it useful or whatever else. And you'll just basically build, discontent within employees. They'll have a fatigue, learning fatigue. All of that will happen, and your CEO and your leadership is going to be talking about, again, 1 year later, 2 years later, we are on this massive digital transformation journey. We're going to build a culture of data. They're going to be talking about the same thing. So don't do that. That's my number one. Don't do that. Strategy comes before planning, and planning comes before execution. Strategy should involve, why are you doing what? What are you going to do? What are you doing? What are you trying to do? And how are you going to measure that? And why are you trying to do what you're going to do? And what are your different personas? And where do you want them to end up at? And overall, think about it in a broader perspective. It is not a siloed effort.
Yeah, but
it's change management.
Let me put a little bit of a counterpoint on that. I mean, I get it, right? So, and this is like earlier today, right? I'm talking to a CFO.
Yeah.
And I mean, he wants to put analytics as one of his core themes, and he already has it as one of his core themes in terms of driving a transformation. There are a lot to get done, right? I mean, they have to go through technology choices. They have to go and figure out how to drive in the new kind of talent that they are trying to do. They have to figure out what kind of use cases that will add value, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, like it or not, like driving the data culture is one aspect of the broader set of themes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just that at some point, how do you avoid talking to an executive saying, okay, yes, I mean, these are all the things we need to do, but they just don't have the bandwidth to get a lot of it done. So how do you address with that? And it's an actual problem that I normally face when I have these conversations.
So basically what you're saying is they have a lot to try.
Yes.
And they have very few resources to send on it, because this is one of the end
It's
projects they're working
things,
on.
yes.
Yeah, and that's why more than ever before, if this is one of your 10 projects, then make sure you are structured so you get more bang for your buck, right? You don't, once you start, if you just jump into, it's like, I think you and I may have talked about it. Let's say you are looking for treasure in Pacific Ocean. And if you're like Columbus, and I'm just making this, if you're an explorer, you're going to go set sail and say, I'm going to look for lost treasures in Pacific Ocean. How likely are you to find that lost treasure? Not very likely, right? But if you're an if you're like a detective, like a Sherlock Holmes, you're going to put on your thinking hat. You're going to strategize. You're going to plan. And you're going to say, oh, what are the best spots that I can go and look for that treasure? And then you're going to set sail to those 5 locations. You're going to go look for those things. You might be successful or you might not be, but you would fail very fast.
Let me ask in a different way then. How do I make sure that, I mean, because some of the mistakes are being made, because I think that planning, what you're saying is if the planning doesn't happen, it's much more likely to go and make a mistake. And then you are kind of trying to figure out licensing some training versus kind of a much broader thing. I totally get that. How do you work with an executive, or how should an executive think about like why it should be one of my top 10 things?
Why should building a culture of data be one of the top 10 things I should be worried about? Yeah, and that's a very fundamental question, Amaresh. I think it goes back to saying, do you believe that data is a key asset for you? Do you believe that data tells you things, helps you find treasures in this treasure island? Do you believe that data is the key to unlock the potential to your better customer experience, to better product builds that you build, better engagement, better user journey, better uptake opportunity? I mean, all of those things. Do you believe that? And if you believe that, then the other question is, yeah, I believe that, but we have a data science team. Our data scientists can do it, right? That's a counter question. That's great. Great. Do you have enough data scientists to solve every question for every decision maker? You don't. No company. Google doesn't have it. Amazon doesn't have it, right? How are you going to solve it? By equipping every individual who's going to make that decision, or whether they're making a decision of $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, whatever level of decisioning they are making. If you equip that person and that team with the know-how of, are you able to actually, simple thing, right? 100K to spend. I have millions of customers. Where should I spend that 100K? And there are a million ways to spend it. How are you going to do it?
And I think what you're bringing up, and the reason I think that what you're bringing up is a very important point, is if you take it as one of the standalone elements of your overall strategy, you're more likely to go down kind of, okay, let's start a training program, right? Versus if you think it as a much more of a holistic approach, and if you think of it as, it's not about everyone's job is data, not only pieces of the job is data, like only data scientists do data, then I think you will end up with you will hopefully not make the mistakes that you and I have seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. Like if you and I and all of us were going to go live in China, would you not learn the Chinese?
Yes.
Right? Would you say, no, only few people need to learn Chinese. The rest of us can survive by not speaking at all or not speaking some other language. No, if you're going to be in China, the language in China is Chinese. The language in Mexico is going to be Spanish. Wouldn't you learn Spanish? So same way, the language of business is data and data literacy. Wouldn't you want everybody to be equipped with that way of communicating, way of leveraging that ecosystem to deliver better insights, drive better value?
Absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely. And I think the point you said is like linking it to the value, linking it to the whole rather than individual. That's, I think, key. But Piyanka, I mean, thank you so much. I mean, this as I said, I was really wanted to have this conversation for you, and we've been planning for months actually for doing something like this, because it's a very important topic. We kind of come across, it's a topic that I think every senior executive wants to kind of do something about. And for sometimes it's definitional, sometimes it's like, how do you get started? And sometimes you tried doing something and normally you've just done it wrong. So I think it's very useful to kind of go and have this conversation And thank you so much for educating at least our listeners on the topic. So
yeah, and I think
really
one last
appreciate it.
thing I want to add, Amaresh, is that
Sure.
right now, I mean, we all going through pandemic time. Our minds is all transitional. Every day we wake up and we don't know next day what's going to happen, what's happening. This mind that we have, this each employee, the mind we have of transition is an absolutely wonderful time to upskill and change culture, because we are ready for change. Right. So don't lose this opportunity. If you've been, sitting on the fence and thinking about data culture, act now, because your employees are primed to change at this time.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Piyanka, thank you so much again. Really lovely having you, and thank you for spending the time, and thank you everyone for our viewers and listeners to spend the time and learn a little bit about this topic. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.